Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we're doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which is expected to see Sinners have a pretty amazing hold in its second weekend of release domestically, with a 16% drop estimated from Box Office Theory, and other sites basically having a very similar mindset of it being somewhere between a 16 and 25% drop from week 1 to week 2. So that is definitely a very, very good number for this movie. The question is still remaining, though, as far as whether it will make money while it is in the box office. I know that there are several people out there that are triggered by the fact that this film did cost quite a bit of money, and so even though it is doing very well as far as just a initial release, right, doing better than anyone could have anticipated, now having a very strong second weekend, the question still remains is, will it be able to make back the massive amount of money that they spent on this film's budget, which does range from $90 to $100 million when you look at the various reportings for it. So we'll have to talk about that, what the likelihood of the film to break even actually is at this point and after this upcoming weekend. But we also have to talk about the fact that Star Wars Episode 3, that's right, the re-release, the 20th anniversary edition, is expected to get the number 2 spot at the box office according to Box Office Theory. So that could be very interesting to see Revenge of the Sith doing better than most of the Disney fare, it seems, these days, which is kind of funny to think about how a film 20 years old is still so much better received than the modern Disney fare. So let's go ahead and just dive into these numbers. So first, at Box Office Theory, as I mentioned before, Sinners, $40.4 million is what its second weekend is projected to be. That is a very, very good number there. All right, a 16% hold, according to Box Office Theory, bringing its total domestic to around $118 million. Now, this is a number that is definitely going to be reflected in many other places. So as of right now, interestingly enough, Sinners over on Box Office Pro is only projected to make between $27 and $35 million, so not nearly as strong of a hold according to Box Office Pro. Box Office Report does have the film pretty close to what Box Office Theory's is, right? $37.5 million projected, a 22% drop from week 1 to week 2. So either way, no matter which one of those it actually ends up hitting, it's expected to do very, very well. And so for a Warner Brothers film, for a horror film from Ryan Coogler, this is definitely a very, very good sign for it and for its long-term prospects. The big issue, it cost around $100 million to actually make the movie. I mean, you remember that they spent another $50 million or so on marketing. That means that the film has to be able to make quite a bit of money. We're talking $250 to $300 million in order just to break even. And though some people think that that might actually be possible, and again, $118 million after 2 weeks domestically, yeah, that's actually a pretty good number. And so, again, last weekend I did mention that the film was flopping, and as of last weekend, that's exactly what the numbers were indicating. It was still $100 million in the red. With holds like this, though, if it actually does hold like this, and if it has future holds like this going into the future, if it legs out quite well, then we absolutely could see that number and that fortune end up reversing itself and actually end up doing pretty well. And so, of course, we'll always be honest here with the numbers as they stand when they come out. And so that is the reason why we are now obviously changing our projections here, that the film is actually probably going to do a little bit better. So, clearly last weekend's numbers, very, very strong, are going to be holding. And this is the big question that we had last weekend, right? It didn't seem like the film would be having that kind of a hold, but hey, seems like Box Office Pro and many of these other places are projecting that is going to happen. And if that does indeed happen, if we do see drops like this and holds like this, and if it does even just decently internationally, yeah, this film could end up actually doing a much better down the line. It could actually be a chart breaker in many regards. But we'll have to, of course, wait and see what the official numbers are and just how well or how not well this film legs out, especially as more and more films get released as we enter into the summer movie season. The number 2 spot, as I'd mentioned, Star Wars Episode 3. That's right, the 20th anniversary edition, $23 million, which could actually end up making more than the 4th or 5th weekend of Minecraft. Minecraft still holding very strong here, 43% drop, $22.9 million, bringing its total domestic to $381 million. So yeah, $400 million domestic is absolutely going to happen for a Minecraft movie, and that's why I do think the film is still tracking towards $8 billion by the end of its run. We also have a brand new film from Amazon. That's right, the Amazon MGM brand, The Accountant 2. I've heard some pretty good things about it. I actually liked the first Accountant film, and so I'm intrigued by the second one, but expected to make around $21 million. What's interesting is that it's a brand new release, and yet it's expected to come in the number 3 or number 4 spot, depending on what charts you're actually looking at here. So yeah, The Accountant 2, doing well, I suppose, but once again, when we talk about budgets here, this film has a little bit of a higher budget, and so as far as profitability is concerned, the jury is still out. King still holding pretty strong too, $60.9 million domestic is what the domestic as of this weekend is expected to be. Another new film from Sony in this case, Until Dawn, only $9 million there. This film didn't cost a whole lot though, so that's actually a pretty good start for that film. Amateur dropping 57%, pretty massive drop actually for a film like that. Warfare 53% drop again from 824, also again not holding nearly as well as they had hoped. Drop 51% drop, etc. Going over to Box Office Pro, right, they have Sinners in the number 1 spot. They have The Accountant 2 actually in the number 2 spot, $22 to $28 million, and so they actually do suspect that there might be a battle between The Accountant 2 and the numbers for the numbers for Sinners, right? So Sinners right now is having that edge, but as you can see, the low end of Sinners versus the high end of The Accountant 2, maybe they see that based off of everything I'm seeing reported from Box Office Report and from Box Office Theory. I suspect that Sinners probably has this weekend in the bag, but hey, you never know. Sinners did a lot better than anyone could have anticipated last weekend. Maybe you will see the same thing for The Accountant 2 this weekend. Minecraft movie, $20 to $25 million, getting that number 3 spot, with the wild card being the reissue, the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, which could end up knocking a couple of those films off at the very least. Going over to Box Office Report, Sinners, as I'd mentioned, $37.5 million. So they're projecting a 22% drop. And then they're expecting The Accountant 2 to actually get the number 2 position here. So it'll be interesting to see exactly where this new film ends up on that release. They're projecting $24 million for that movie. A Minecraft film, $22 million, 46% drop, so pretty similar numbers there to Box Office Theories. Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith, getting the number 4 spot. Again, still very impressive for a film 20 years old to be getting into the top 5. And then the other new release from Sony, Until Dawn, only $9.6 million. And as I mentioned before, that's actually still pretty good based off of the numbers and based off of everything else. Now let's talk about Sinners for a bit, because there's some people who are getting triggered by the budget for this film. And hey, even Tony over at Deadline has to admit, guess what? This film cost over $90 million. So $90 million plus. All right. And again, the projections are between $90 and $100 million, which is why in my charting, because we love charts here on OMB Reviews, I have the budget listed as $95 million. So that means based off of that number there, the film needs to make between $237 million and $285 million. Now, I mentioned before about $300 million, because if it did cost $100 million, then that would mean that the high end of what the film would actually need to make to break even would be around $300 million. Now, the film has been doing very well, though, right? So right now, as far as the last update that we had, $71.5 million domestic, $15.5 million international. So the film still is around $96 million in the hole. And that's the big reason as to why this film still has a long way to go to actually break even. Now, if it makes another $40 million this weekend, it'll be able to cut that number by about 25%. Remember that studios do not get 100% of those box office receipts. They only get about 55% of the domestic number, only about 40% of the international number, obviously with the exception being China there. So this film still has a long ways to go. And so again, I still stand by my reporting from last weekend, because the numbers were still not looking all that great for the film. Now, if it has the kind of hole that's being projected, that does change the game quite a bit, right? Films don't typically have a drop in the 16% to 22% range in their second weekend. On average, most films tend to drop between 50 and 70%. And so based off of those numbers, right, it was obviously very clear that the film did not have a good chance of breaking even. Again, if it has drops like this, as it's being projected, that does change the game quite a bit. And we'll have our updated projections this weekend, because we'll actually be able to make some more firm projections on what the film will likely do. Because after 2 weeks, we have a much better idea. We see the second weekend hold. We see how it's holding down the line. And again, could be a very good sign for them going forward, especially for Warner Brothers, if they're able to turn the tide on that and, end up doing better than what anyone could have potentially expected. Now, let's talk a little bit about the box office for Until Dawn, Accountant 2. So right now, Until Dawn, again, only cost $15 million. So a $9 million domestic opening would actually be pretty darn good for that. It would mean the prospects of breaking even would be pretty high. It still has to make between $37 and $45 million, though, to break even. And so we'll have to wait and see whether it's able to do that down the line. The Accountant 2 is in a much more precarious situation, because it has to make around, $200 to $240 million to break even, right? With a reported budget of $80 million. So it has a long ways to go to actually break even. But hey, you never know what can happen. Look what's happening with Sinners. That film was projected to not do well, was projected to flop last weekend. And based on the current projections now, the updated projections, that film could actually end up doing much better and could actually even be profitable at the box office. Again, jury's still out on that one, but it's looking a lot better for the film. That is for sure. The Accountant 2, right now, not looking all that great. Again, decent opening weekend, $20+ million in your domestic opening, but that's still not quite close to where you would need to be in the break-even territory. So we'll, of course, follow these numbers and update them here in real time. And just some last current updates on the films still out. So The Amateur, right now, is the end expected to flop, $59 million in the red. Drop, $5.5 million. This film is expected to make its money back because of a much lower budget. And then Warfare, some people were triggered also about Warfare, $20.5 million in the red. It's still $24 5 million in the red. And it's, again, seeing some pretty sizable drops, especially for an A24 release. And so could it make its money back at the box office? Maybe. But as I mentioned before, I think the VOD sales probably will be able to make up for a film like Warfare versus a film like, Sinners, where if it has a drop and if it is $50 million in the red by the end of its run, and again, right now, it's not looking like it's going to be that bad. It's looking like it actually might be a lot better. We're talking about maybe having 25 million in the red, maybe even breaking even and making a little bit of profit too. That's the projections right now. That's where the numbers are currently going. And I know some people, for some reason, get triggered whenever I mention math, but hey, these are the numbers, these are the maths, and there's no emotion behind them. They are simply what they are. And so anyway, what are y'all's thoughts about these numbers? Please let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button. Also, make sure that you smash the rumble button as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful. Have a wonderful rest of your day. A blessed Easter. And of course, a blessed Easter Friday. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members, starting off first with my people on Patreon, Father Luca Illick and Miss Martin Muses. Check out her YouTube channel by the same name, Miss Martin Muses. Also to my Subscribe Star people, Matt317. Check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Matt317. And lastly to my YouTube member, Mr. Roy. Shout out to you, good sir. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, check out the top link in the video description below where you get access to that. Also, you get access to a plethora of other things. You get your name listed at the end of every live stream and video, like you saw in those names that came up before this video started. And also access to a giveaways channel that I host over on the Discord server where I give away 4Ks, Steelbooks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff. So check that out if you're interested in that. Also, I have an exclusive podcast that I hold at least once a month, and it's always a good time, and you get extra bonus content with that also. So if any of that sounds interesting, again, check out that top link in the video description below. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.